son is racing.
Welcome back, race fans, to the Rubbin' Is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. After 3 months away, we get to kick things off with the Super Bowl of stock car racing, the Daytona 500.
The Monster Energy Cup Series is ready to kick off their campaign as title sponsor of NASCAR. This will be the most intense racing that we see all year. These drivers are competing for not only a trophy, but for racing immortality. The Daytona 500 is a 200-lap affair that's going to be decided by who's going to be the bravest and who's going to be the boldest. And the person who can achieve both of those things will have career-long bragging rights.
Since 2004, Chevrolet has absolutely dominated Daytona International Speedway with 15 wins out of 27 races, with 4 second with 9 wins. And 2 of those wins have come within the last 2 races at the Daytona, including last summer's 2016 race.
Sunday, we should have sunny skies with temperatures between 60 and 70 degrees when they take the green flag at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. Coverage begins at 1. Let's get into the picks, boys. Liehr, kick off the 2017 season right. It's burning rubber time, baby.
Burning Rubber 2017! Stop, baby!
He's worth having on the show just for that, in my opinion. Yeah. Adrian, kick it off, buddy. Who you got burning rubber?
How's that for a welcome back? Thanks, guys, for continuing to watch our show. We're really glad to have you back for this season. We're really excited to give you the picks that are going to help you win all these GPPs. This week, I'm going to start off, the same way that I did a lot last year through restrictor plate tracks. I'm going to roll with a Penske Ford, and I'm going to roll with Joey Logano at 9,900. This guy's starting 15th. I know that there's a lot of guys that are starting farther back. You look at guys like Jimmy Johnson and Martin Truex Jr., the guys that we're going to talk about later in the show, who are starting so much farther back than Logano. That's not my fear with Logano. I know it's going to be great to have those extra place differential, but if I look at Logano, I'm looking at him because he's going to be my dominator. He's a guy that I think can get up to the front, stay up at the front, and block both lanes like we saw in the Clash and the Duels, and be able to win the race. He won the Daytona 500 in 2015, so only 2 years removed. He'd love to get 2 out of the last 3 and add a second trophy to that mantle. He's the 2017 Advanced Auto Parts Clash winner when his teammate Brad Keselowski was pushed by him to get by Denny Hamlin. It was all up to Joey Logano to win that race, and he executed in that situation. Joey has won 3 out of the last 8 restrictor plate races in the NASCAR series, and Penske has won 5 out of those 8. So his teammate Brad Keselowski's getting a victory lane at a pretty good rate, and so is Joey. He actually just signed a contract extension today that will actually have him driving the number 22 car with Shell and Pennzoil through 2022. So Roger Penske really believes in this kid, and rightfully so. He's really formed himself into one of the most skilled plate racers in the series. If I look at the best drivers in the series as far as these plate tracks, you got to look, obviously Dale Earnhardt Jr. is the best as they come. And then you look at guys like Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski and Denny Hamlin and Matt Kenseth, guys who are just staples at the front of the field who know how to run up at the front of the pack and set themselves up for the end of the race. And honestly, if you roster this guy, I don't think you're going to be mad. He's going to be up at the front. He's going to be getting those fastest laps. And in my opinion, he's going to be leading those laps, and I think he's going to be leading lap 200. The way these segments work, it's not really going to matter for DraftKings. I know it. You look at that and you think that it's really affecting the point series for the normal NASCAR points. But as far as DraftKings is concerned, we're not really worried about the segments. We just need Joey Logano to get up from that 15th starting position, get up to the front, and put that 22 car in the wind. He's my pick to win the Daytona 500.
Nice, AW. I definitely love the 22 and Joey Logano. Those guys over there at Penske, they've just, their strategy they've been taking at these restrictor plates, they just got the right strategy going. And this weekend with the new implementation of the segments, obviously the first 60 laps, the second 60 laps for the second segment, and then 80 laps to finish it out. I think that's going to play some strategy into the race this coming Sunday. And it's going to have some effect, I believe, on some of these teams, and specifically to these Penske guys with Logano and Keselowski, because they're just so used to just having to do pit stops when there's a caution come out. So with the implementation of this segments, I think it's going to play a factor into that. But Logano's obviously proven that he is fast here at Daytona. He was fastest today in the practice session. But over the duels and in the clash, I mean, he was up there. Only thing that stunk was that he just had a vibration in the duels last night, which then, he went a lap down. But, they have all the speed in that 22 Ford. And I definitely am going to have exposure on him this weekend, without a doubt, especially when you factor in his price cost of under $10K, somebody with his experience here at Daytona, but also too, that the place differential potential there for Logano with the fastest laps and the laps led. There's a good combination there, a good variable there for 22. So I'm definitely going to have some exposure to Joey Bag of Donuts this weekend.
Yeah, guys, I love the pick. It's a good place differential potential. He also could win this race. I also love Keselowski starting 7th. The problem this week, and you will see this throughout this show, is a question of who you have winning the race in combination with all these guys starting at the back of the field that are just in really good equipment that we know are going to work their way forward. You got to make a stand somewhere. Sometimes I will have exposure to Logano. I'll have a little bit of exposure to Keselowski, but you'll probably see throughout the show I'm going a little bit different direction for the majority of my lineups. So with that said, Liehr, who you got burning some rubber this week, buddy?
Man, let me start off by saying how awesome it is to be back doing the Rubbin' Is Racing show with my two buddies, Big Poppa and Adrian Woodruff. I'm so happy that NASCAR is back and somebody else is back in NASCAR as well.
I see what you did there.
And so the Monster NASCAR Cup Series, you're going to have to get used to saying that, most popular driver is back behind the wheel after missing half the season last year due to concussion issues. He also got married over the offseason. But Dale has had to overcome a lot of things during these past months, and it has been great to see him to get back this week at the track down there in Daytona in that fire seat where he belongs and behind that wheel of the number 88. But when I sat down to go over the statistics and everything for this coming weekend's Daytona 500, I kind of had some mixed emotions about, how much exposure I would have to Earnhardt due to not being behind the wheel of the number 88 for over a 6-month time period. Because these guys, the more you're behind the wheel, the better. But obviously, he was at tracks practicing, all that kind of stuff. But being in a race is a completely different atmosphere than just going out there and logging laps. But all the pressure that, not only comes with his name, that particular car, the number 88, that particular team being Team Hendrick, and being out of the car so long. But after last night's duel, the second duel race, where he just absolutely dominated until the end of the race. But I have the utmost confidence that he's going to be a dominator again this Sunday and will prove why he is the best restrictor plate racer on the circuit, but also to get that monkey off his back early into the 2017 season. By his stats alone, he's the best statistical driver for Sunday's race, and he will be starting on the outside next to his teammate Chase Elliott. He's the active leader in most wins with 4. He's also the most active leader with laps led with 593. He also wants to prove last year's Daytona 500 was a fluke as well, because he started 3rd and finished 36 due to that a wreck. But his cost this week will also hinder what kind of lineups that you can put together as well. His cost is $10,600, which is the most expensive out of all the drivers available. But if he absolutely comes out and dominates this thing on Sunday, he is going to be a must-owned play. And if you are a multiple player in lineups in DraftKings contests, just ensure that you have a couple of lineups without Dale Earnhardt to just do that, to get those lineups to where, because he's just going to have so high probably of an exposure in different tournaments as far as percentage goes. But in my opinion, the storyline is going to be made all about Dale this week, and it has been all about Dale this week. And I think the week is going to end all about Dale as well. And I have this feeling, guys, that with all those storylines coming into play, he's going to take it home this weekend and do it to it. So
yeah, Liehr, the problem.
I'm all about the 88. I'm all about the nationwide.
Liehr, the problem is that I agree with you. He's one of the best restrictor plate drivers there is. But you just made the arguments in the last part of your thing of why you should fade him before we get into the technical parts. He's going to be owned probably by over 50% of the field, right?
Yes.
That's problematic in and of itself before we break down to what he can actually score points-wise without having to do something that he and most other drivers have never done at Daytona during the 500 and restrictor plate racing, which is completely dominate this race starting from the number 2 spot. But before I get into the math, I want to make this argument. He's in one of the Hendrick cars that has a problem at turn 4 on this track. And the last 4 races here, we've lost multiple Hendrick cars on turn 4 because they can't stick to the track in crowds. I don't think they've got that problem solved, as we saw Jimmy spinning out multiple times once again in turn 4 during the Clash race. This is problematic for them. But if you don't like either one of those arguments, I think here is where you're going to side with me, regardless of how good Junior is, that you do not want to play him this weekend for DraftKings purposes. If you break down the numbers, he's going to need to lead over basically 60 laps and win to equal the potential points of other drivers in the field. If he doesn't win the race, he will need to lead 4 more laps above the 60 that I quoted for every spot he falls back, just to not lose you points. If anyone can do it, it's Junior in that car as the driver. But it's not a bet I want to make as someone setting up lineups in DraftKings. He literally is going to have to completely dominate this race, and there's too many good cars, especially in the front and coming from the back, that can team up to get up there and take him down. I just don't see anybody dominating this race to the extent that you would have to have for either him or Elliott, who I'll get to in a little while, that you would want to play up front. I just don't see it. Adrian, your thoughts?
Listen, I love Dale Earnhardt Jr. I love the storyline of him coming back to Daytona. I love everything about it. And honestly, DraftKings aside and putting money on the line for a team aside, if one driver can win this race, I want it to be Dale Earnhardt Jr. because he deserves it more than any other driver in the field just after what he's went through. So, just putting that aside, if you look at his cost of $10,600, he's obviously the best driver in the series at Daytona. They look like they have a pretty fast car. He was pretty dominant, leading 53 of 60 laps in the duel last night. But, I'm not sure that you can read too much into that because just like Poppa said, no one really dominates the Daytona 500 because at different points there's going to be so many different cars up in the front, especially with the segments breaking up the race. There's going to be a lot of differentiated strategies. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. is going to get put back in traffic a lot, and he's going to have to work his way to the front a lot. So, in my opinion, if you're picking these drivers at the front of the field, yeah, it's great that they're already up there. They're not going to have to go through the traffic, but it's not really that important that they're so close to the front because I feel like they're going to be put in situations where they're in the back a lot. And I'm not really sure that you can put your money on that just based on the fact that he's going to be so high owned. I think that he'll have a super fast car and be contending for the win. But I just think, like Poppa said, the level of, that he has to rise to reach his salary to make him a better play than a guy like, Kyle Busch, who's starting outside the 20s, and you got Martin Truex Jr., who's starting 35th. In my opinion, I just got to play other guys. Honestly, you got to find that one guy you think is going to lead the laps. And other than that, you just got to go with the place differential guys. And if I'm putting Dale Earnhardt Jr. on a team, it's because I think he's going to dominate the race. And I just can't have a crazy amount of exposure, relying on Dale Earnhardt Jr. to dominate the race because it doesn't have to be such a hard task for other drivers. If you look at Martin Truex Jr., he can have an amazing day just finishing in the top 15. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has to put a lot more effort in to get the same point total. That's just my opinion on it. But I do love Dale Earnhardt Jr. I think he's the best, since his dad to ever sit behind the wheel of a car at a restrictor plate track. I'm not really sure that it's a great DraftKings play just based on how much people are going to be all over him.
Liehr, I feel like we were a little rough on you. We'll give you a chance to rebut there. But just keep it short so we can get into some other picks.
No, I know, but here's the thing, boys. My feelings are never going to get hurt when you disagree with my pick. That's what makes this show what it is, and that's what makes it great. But here's the other thing that we always have to think about as well. This is the Super Bowl of this sport, is this weekend. No other sport that we have kicks off the season. This is the biggest race that has the biggest variables out of all the different races as well. And it's the most unpredictable race. So I agree with you with your stance on the plays here, but I want to go with the guy that's got the experience. I want to go with the guy that's going to be up front. I want to go with the guy that's got the clean air. I want to go with the guy that's got the teammate next to him. I want to go with the guy that is going to be up front and that statistically has the most domination at this type of race.
Oh, you are absolutely right that statistically has the most domination at this race. I'm choosing to go a different direction with my burning rubber pick. And I want to be clear. The reason why Poppa's burning rubber pick is not Martin Truex Jr. is I think it's such an obvious play that everybody has to make it this week. If you're not making Martin Truex play, you're doing it wrong. I also love Denny Hamlin as Adrian is showing. But
the
Denny
2015 Daytona 500 win diecast.
Right.
Signed.
The problem with Denny Hamlin is, once again, he's up in the top group of drivers, and unless you have him dominating as well. But my burning rubber pick is his teammate, Rowdy. Kyle Busch is underpriced to begin with, being under $10K for the driver quality he is. Second, he starts 21st. He is one of the top 5 drivers in a top 5 car, and in his last 2 races at Daytona, he finished 2nd and 3rd. If you do the math on place differential, that's going to crush whatever Earnhardt and Chase Elliott do, even if they win the race and lead laps. Look, I'm thoroughly going to expose myself and my lineups to Rowdy this week, and Truex will be on pretty much every single lineup except for design fades. That's just how this field is set, and I think it's the smart way to play fantasy NASCAR. Now, there is the chance that either one of those guys could get caught up in a wreck and ruin your day, but like Liehr was trying to make an argument for what are things the most probable to happen, and the most probable thing to happen in this race is those good cars in the back will move through the front. Will move to the front and accumulate a ton of points. Now, while Rowdy has never won the Daytona 500, I think that kind of means he's due, but you know what? You don't need him to actually finish like in first place for him to pay off and for him to be a staple and something you have to have on your lineup. The math says a top 10 will do it, and a top 5 will put you on easy street. Remember, the fastest laps here are often not from the car that's out in front. They're often from the cars coming from the back of the traffic, from the back of the pack up to the front, because they've got good pack drafting going on. So you're not going to get those fastest laps sitting up in clean air. You're most likely only going to get laps led. That's why I would choose a guy like Rowdy starting from the 21st position instead of some of these other drivers. Adrian, your thoughts?
Qualifying made this really difficult as far as picking the stars that you want to roll with. Mm-hmm. Kyle Busch is a guy, if you look at Kyle Busch and you look at his teammates at Joe Gibbs Racing, he has the best opportunity for place differential out of anyone. Honestly, I think that his teammate Denny Hamlin has the best car out of the Gibbs drivers, the defending Daytona 500 champion. Honestly, though, I think the Gibbs drivers can get up to the front, though. I think they can team up. And I think that when they get up there and Kyle gets up there around his teammates, he can hang around in the top 10. And like Poppa said, he just has to finish in the top 10 to pay off that salary. So regardless, I think Kyle Busch is just one of those easy plug-and-play guys. If you're looking, you're looking for a dominator and also a place differential guy, he's kind of the perfect combination of the two. I might look at guys like Jimmy Johnson and Truex as far as the high-dollar guys. But, Kyle Busch is one of those 3 guys out of, Johnson, Truex, and Kyle Busch, who's starting so far back there. You have to find a way to sneak a lot of these guys on your lineups. And if you're going to not play one of them, it's, you got to figure out why. And it just seems like Kyle Busch has got a lot more going for him than any of his Joe Gibbs teammates. So the Gibbs cars have just been so fast. I think that if I play, I'm going to definitely have a Hamlin lineup. But if I play any of the other Gibbs cars, it's going to be Kyle Busch. I mean, Kyle Busch he's one of the best in the sport. He's not extremely impressive on restrictor plate tracks just because he makes so many bold and aggressive moves that he tends to get himself wrecked a lot. But I don't mind the Kyle Busch play. He has this fire and intensity about him that really just it makes him fun to watch. And when the biggest prize is on the line, Kyle Busch knows to step up just like these other superstars. So I really like the Kyle Busch play. He doesn't cost that much, compared to what he was being priced last year after coming off that championship. So I'm really feeling the Kyle Busch play. I'll definitely have some exposure.
Oh, dude, see, I even forgot to put on the hat. I'm so excited about the show. There we go. All right, Liehr, go ahead and tell us your thoughts, buddy.
I mean, not much more I can add to that, fellas, but I mean, to have Kyle Busch and starting higher than 20th, we're not going to have that many times this year, and it's all because of the dual race where they made a decision not to take tires last night, and it basically screwed them, and ended up getting to the back of the dual race there. So But obviously that's a completely different story than, the entire 200 laps on Sunday. But it does give you a little bit of a preview with what this kind of segmentation is going to bring, because it was 60 laps, and these segments, the first two anyways, are 60 laps. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how all that's going to come into play with how it's going to play out on Sunday. But Kyle Busch for $9,400, is definitely going to be a play that I'm going to make, because he's going to be a good place differential guy, just as long as he and his teammate, which he's not too far behind Daniel Suarez, 19th, which is a rookie, but I'm actually quite impressed with Suarez as far as what he's done so far. But Kyle Busch, the crafty veteran, he's going to figure out ways to maneuver and get up to the front. And if they're smart, they're definitely going to get up there sooner rather than later, because they're going to want to get the points, the bonus points for these segments, and stay up front in case that big wreck does happen. Which, I mean, let's be honest, fellas, this is Daytona with 40 cars on it, bumper to bumper. Something's going to happen, and you don't want to be one of those cars wrapped up into that. So, but I'm definitely going to have some exposure to Kyle Busch.
Sweet. Yeah, I forgot to say it like I normally do when I recommend a JGR driver, but let's be honest, all the JGR drivers are in play, and the JGR affiliated drivers are in play this week. And I think that actually transitions us fairly nicely to the value segment. Adrian, who do you got rolling for us for your value pick, buddy?
Before I give you my value pick, I just want to quickly mention how we're talking about the segments, and it's still early in the truck race, but I just want to talk about how they're 40 laps out of 100 laps into the truck race. A third of the field is crashed out already. So I don't know if that can tell you anything about how wild the Daytona 500 is going to be. I know there's a lot of inexperience in the truck race, but these segments seem to be pretty wild already. Everyone's really liking it so far. But speaking of another one I'm liking so far, if you can tell by my hat, I'm going to roll with Erik Jones in the number 77. This is going to be his first Daytona 500. Listen, let me just preface this by saying that Erik Jones, other than Trevor Bayne, is my favorite driver. But I'm not going to homer out Jamie. I'm not going to let that get in the way. I'm just going to tell you guys why Erik Jones is the guy that you have to have on your team at $8,300.
Hey, Jamie didn't even homer out for Truex yet, this race. So, we got to give him some props on that. All right,
congrats, Jamie.
Get back to it.
I'll get into that. Speaking of his teammate Truex, Erik Jones is starting in 34th position because he was too busy texting and driving and didn't slow down in time for the wreck that was happening in the dual race. So Erik Jones will be starting 34th, and his teammate Martin Truex Jr. will be starting right behind him in 35th. This actually bodes well for this Furniture Row team because, with his teammate Martin Truex Jr. failing post-race tech, he still gets to keep his primary car. So these guys are going to be hooking up at the start of the race, and they're going to be headed towards the front. Martin Truex Jr. is going to be helping Erik get to the front of the field. He's going to be helping coach Erik and show Erik, the ways that he can get around in this draft. And trust me, Erik learned a lot in the dual race, but these cars are a lot different than anything Erik's driven before. Albeit he had a few starts in the 18 car and in the 20 car in 2015, but this is a whole new animal. This is his car. This is his whole season that's on the line. So, Truex really wants to groom him into the driver and the teammate that he knows he can be. Playing a rookie is a big risk, and I get that. But for the price that he's at $8,300 and the quality of equipment that you're getting, which is the same car that Martin Truex Jr. is driving, which we talked all season long last year about how he was the best car. He was always the most expensive driver, and he finished second in the Daytona 500 last year. So it shows that Furniture Row is bringing good speedway cars. Many drivers around Erik Jones's price, around $8K, they can outprice him. He's only $8,300. If you have a guy, starting 34th at $8,300, are you going to play him or are you going to play a guy starting third at $8,000? It's just a simple answer. I think Erik just needs a top 15, a top 20 to pay off his salary. I don't think many people are going to be on him because he is a rookie and because he's new, and a lot of people probably haven't heard of him, even though he did have a lot of success in the lower series. I just think it's going to be a sneaky play. It's actually going to be a guy that I'm going to have almost 100% exposure on, just because I want to watch my favorite driver in his Daytona 500 maybe, but mostly because he's going to be starting so far back, it's going to make it almost impossible to not be able to comfortably fit this guy on your lineup and, watch that lineup soar up to the top. And he's a middle-tier price guy. I know we don't like to play guys around that price because if you want a stud, then you pretty much have to sacrifice a stud to play Erik Jones. But due to his qualifying position, I don't see many other guys other than the guys that we're going to talk about here in a second that are going to be able to outpoint Erik Jones in that fast number 77 Furniture Row Toyota.
Stop the presses. Poppa.
What?
Does 8,300 equal value?
Dude, I actually was going to go off on Adrian for 8,300 not being value for all the crap I took last year. I'm like, Eric Jones doesn't even fit my value paradigms.
I had to find a way to pick Eric Jones, Poppa. You know that. They know that. We all know that.
Well, it is the introduction of his way into the Rubbin' His Racing show and the 2017 Monster Cup NASCAR series. So, and he's one of your boys, so I'll give you the pass on this one, sir.
Thank you.
But I am going to have to disagree with you in playing Eric Jones because I'm sorry, he's just like last year when we had Chase Elliott come into the Daytona 500. Little bit of a different story or scenario, obviously, because Elliott was starting from the pole position where Jones is obviously not. But
not quite.
Not even close.
But the thing is, with Eric Jones, I know that he's starting way back in 34th, but I'm sorry, guys, he's a rookie. He's going to be out with guys that have been on this circuit for many, many, many years, driving experience with these type of cars, and not only that, but also this racetrack. And I can't put $8,300 into a rookie that's going to be going out there, mixing it up with the best of the best on the best track, also the best racing circuit in all of racing. And I can't do it because there's guys that are way below him that have much more experience, and somebody I will be talking about later. But there's just way too many more options than Eric Jones for me to pick. And I know probably by default that, okay, he is starting back in 34th and we're going to have a wreck and maybe he can gain some spots through default from there, which it is going to happen. But will he be one of those lucky few that escape it and be able to finish the race? That's a question mark. I would much rather save the $1,000 and spend it on somebody else that I know that I'm going to get the points from than somebody that is going to be a quote-unquote question mark.
I think you both made the exact arguments for why you would or would not want to play Eric Jones. I'm going to tell you why I would side with Adrian here for just a second. Your arguments are going to drive down his ownership percentage astronomically. And if Adrian's scenario is right, that he teams up with Truex and possibly Kyle Busch moving through the field, right, if they can get up to Kyle and get through the field together, you're in a whole heap of trouble if those cars finish anywhere near the top 10 and you don't play him, right? Because let's assume Eric Jones' ownership percentage comes back at like 5 to 7%, which is standard for somebody that's off the radar, right? If that's true, those 5 to 7% of lineups are just going to be all near the top and peppered. The reason being is all of Liehr's arguments could be true, right? And aside from giving Adrian crap because 8,300 is not value, as they like to tell me multiple times last year, I actually love the play. And some of my lineups already, I've made the play specifically because of ownership and in the race vision where I have him teamed up with Truex and with Kyle Busch moving through the field. Now, Liehr's going to be right that we don't know what's going to happen. There could always be a wreck. But I'm not the type of guy that's going to try to analyze wrecks because I don't know who's going to get into wrecks. So I try to use the data without like that in the equation. That's just me, though.
The way I see it, it's such a big tournament. You got to find a way to differentiate yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
I understand that most people aren't going to be on Eric Jones, but that actually makes me, more willing to play him because, I could go off and play a guy that everyone knows, but that just means that everyone else is going to have that same driver. So if Eric Jones, does what I believe he can do, I feel like that I can be one of the few people who, saw that coming.
Yeah, and if he gets to a point where, he pays off, all he has to do is get, that's the kind of the qualm as far as it goes is he's 8,300, so people are not going to play him because he's too high cost. But he's starting way back in the field at 34th, so that's a positive for him. But in order for him to pay off his $8,300, he's got to at least have a top, 17, 15 finish in order for him to pay off that $8,300.
I don't have that out of my realm of possibilities whatsoever. And that's why I actually...
I do agree with you, though, that I think he's going to be a low percentage owned guy just because of the fact, one, he is a rookie, and not a lot of people know about him. As far as now, all the regular NASCAR fans and fantasy players know who he is. But I think the people that are just going to jump into tournaments because it's the Daytona 500, I think they'll have no clue.
Well, right, Liehr, all the people jumping into these tournaments are going to miss all these place differential plays unless they're watching the Rubbin' His Racing Daily Fantasy Show to know that you need those place differential plays. All right, I think we've covered Eric Jones sufficiently. Yeah. Let's go ahead and get Liehr's pick.
Keep going if you wanted to.
Liehr, who do you have for some value? Hopefully it's more valuable than 8,300.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be going more value, $1,000 less value than Eric Jones. But I'm going to be going with the number 21 in Ryan Blaney with the Wood Brothers. Is a major up-and-coming guy in 2017. Blaney gained a ton of experience last year, being full-time on the sport's largest stage. But last night during the second dual race, he had probably the fastest car and wasn't afraid to make those calculated moves to put him and his team in the best position to get up to the front. And having a very strong race for Sunday is going to be huge for them. But if it wasn't for David Reagan being a dummy and getting into the back of Jimmy Johnson in his quarter panel bumper area and getting him into the left side of Blaney, my opinion, he would have at least had a top 3 finish for sure. But now he's going to have to go to a backup car for Sunday's race, and he's starting 36th. As a Blaney fan, I feel bad for him, obviously, on what happened. But as a fantasy NASCAR player, I mean, I'm
gold mine.
Yeah, I'm double thumbs up on that bad boy because, I mean, it's as we used to say, it's a free square. It's a no-brainer. He's going to be, one of those guys that's going to have the best place differential possibilities in the field for the 2017 Daytona 500. And he has only raced at Daytona in the Monster Cup Series 3 times with an average start of 10th and an average finish of 24th. But, I mean, 36, you got nowhere to go but up. When I say up, I mean, higher position. But his cost this week is huge value, in my opinion, at $7,300. I mean, I think it's criminal that you are pricing a guy of Eric Jones' stature of $8,300 to Ryan Blaney $1,000 less, and a guy that's been on the circuit for a year longer.
Eric Jones is pretty good, though.
Well, sure. In your humble opinion, but due to this situation, I think that his ownership percentage, obviously, for Ryan Blaney this weekend is going to be massive because, I mean, it's kind of not a red flag, but hey, look at me, Ryan Blaney in 36th spot. He's obviously should have a top 15 finish if, barring, anything, a wreck or anything like that. But just depends on how good his backup car is and compared to, what he had last night at the duels. But I'm going to be all over Ryan Blaney this weekend in my tournaments. He's definitely a guy I think that you're going to have on your lineups to definitely take down those GPPs. But again, like we said, it's going to be a free square, and the ownership percentages are probably pretty high, especially with all the regulars in fantasy NASCAR.
Yeah, my guess is that the pros and the savvy players pretty much put him on lineups roughly 75% of the time, 50 to 75% of the time, along with a lot of these other value guys that we're talking about and the guys starting from the back of the field. The smart players and the savvy players will tend to do that. Unless you're trying to be contrarian. Other than that, people are probably going to be making the wrong plays if you're not playing Blaney. I mean, it's just too much of an opportunity for place differential. It's just too good of a play and too good of equipment. Wood Brothers have a history of being good. The only knock I have on here, aside from the backup car, is that he doesn't have teammates. And teammates are very important at Daytona. But I will give Blaney props that he is a smart enough driver to have his spotter communicating with other drivers, getting him working with other people to work his way through the field. I think that'll easily happen. Don't you, Adrian?
And he drives a Ford, baby.
Yeah. I love me some Ryan Blaney. This guy he's a super talented kid, and he's really came onto the NASCAR series and surprised a lot of people. This guy was somewhat relevant when he was driving for Brad Keselowski Racing in the Truck Series. And then the Wood brothers snatched this kid up when Trevor Bayne went to Roush Fenway, and he's really, set the world on fire for this team. He hasn't won a race yet, but he's came really close. He's had some really good runs. If you look at the dual race, he was the only one that was going to challenge Dale Earnhardt Jr. You're looking at Dale Earnhardt Jr. and he's just waving back and forth down the backstretch, and no one can get by him. And no one is, brave enough to try to get by him. When I said earlier in the show, this race is going to be about who's the bravest and who's the boldest. Ryan Blaney's already in a backup car. He didn't lose his primary car due to any of his own fault. Starting in 36th position, I don't see any way that you can build a lineup consciously and not put Ryan Blaney on it. He's almost like Poppa said, with Truex. The only reason he wouldn't be on your lineup is for a design fade. The Wood brothers always bring fast cars to Daytona and Talladega. They swear, as a company, that's always been where they had their pride in their team. Mm-hmm. If you look at Trevor Bayne in the 2011 Daytona 500, no one expected them to bring a car that fast when they were out of the series for so long. And then that car comes to Daytona, and he's drafting with Jeff Gordon, and he's making passes, and then next thing you know, he's winning the Daytona 500. This is the kind of thing that Ryan Blaney needs for his career. It's going to be hard to do in a backup car, but Matt Kenseth did it in a backup car in 2009. But the best thing about it is we don't need Ryan Blaney to win this race. Sure, if you're a Ryan Blaney fan, you're going to want him to win the race. But if you're a DraftKings player and you're signing him up for your team, you're not really concerned about him winning the race. You're just wanting him to get a top 20 finish and just pretty much finish like his average is of 24th. I love the Ryan Blaney play. I would have made it myself. I tried to steal him away from Jamie. But Ryan Blaney is awesome. I'm definitely going to have me some Ryan Blaney exposure. I love seeing the Wood brothers have success.
Yeah. All right. I think that wraps up Liehr's value pick. Now it's time for mine. And I'm not going to be the one this week that's going super high. I actually came in with the lowest, cheapest driver for value this week. I'm advocating you roll the dinger, guys, at 6,700. He starts 38th. Yeah, that's right, 38th. In my opinion, I want pieces of all the guys starting 33rd or worse. I mean, we've been through a couple of them already. It's just they're obvious plays for place differential, and you're going like some combination of them with the right drivers is what's going to take down GPPs this week, in my opinion. His average finish is in the low 20s. That could easily finish he could easily finish in the teens with a wreck, and he finished 13th here last summer. Most scenarios that I have laid out mathematically have the dinger exceeding value immensely, and at the same time, basically, if you look at any of the math for the 33rd, starting 33rd and below, the math shows that most of those guys are going to be plays as long as they don't get caught up in a wreck. There are just a lot of superior cars and a lot of superior drivers starting from the back of the field. And for GPPs, you're going to have them. Adrian?
Actually, the best thing about AJ Allmendinger is last year he was over 7K all season. They actually lowered his price back down to reality for this season. And at a great time, too, because he had such a poor qualifying effort due to his, the problems he had in the duels. And his teammate Chris Buescher's right there along with him. If you look at AJ Allmendinger, you have to look at his teammate Chris Buescher starting right there with him. I love both the guys. The only problem I have with these guys is if I'm only probably going to play one lower tier guy like this, and you just got to have the variance to decide if you're going to play AJ Allmendinger or Chris Buescher. I'm not really sure who I like more, Chris Buescher or AJ Allmendinger. I'm probably going to say AJ Allmendinger just because of the experience. I don't know if Chris Buescher has crossed the checkered flag at Daytona yet in the Cup Series. So I really like the AJ Allmendinger play. I'm going to have some exposure to Chris Buescher as well, but he's a great value play. I think that AJ Allmendinger is probably the lowest you really need to go. I don't think that there's any reason for you to be reaching down into the Jeffrey Earnhardts and guys like that. It's not the time for that. The prices and the salary aren't like that. I think the lowest you need to probably be reaching down is just right at 6K.
Back to life. Back to reality.
Well, Michael Annette's not in the series anymore, so everything's changed without Michael Annette in our lives.
Oh, yeah. I miss him, by the way. He was a semi-good player.
Never forget Michael Annette.
Yeah.
Good luck at Daytona tomorrow, Michael.
But, no, as far as AJ Allmendinger, I mean, is for a place differential guy and at his price point, he's definitely going to be a good play for sure. He had a great finish. He finished fourth last night in the duel, coming from the back. So, he's raced here a total of 15 times, which is good experience for a guy, especially like you said, Adrian, racing right next to his JTG racing partner there, and Chris Buescher. It's just one of those things where I've got my eye on other drivers other than AJ Allmendinger. And I also think, too, that, most of the pros and everybody else will see that number 47 starting from the 39th position, and say that, hey, I'm sorry, not 39th, but 38th position, saying that's also a free square, which I think it is too. In my mind, it's just one of those things where I will have exposure to AJ Allmendinger, just not a ton, because like we've talked about in the past, AJ Allmendinger is definitely a road course specialist, but
yes,
he is gaining a lot of experience with being full time on the circuit, and his skills are definitely improving when it comes to the different type of tracks. But I definitely will have some exposure to AJ Allmendinger, just not majority of my lineups.
All right, guys. With that said, it's my personal favorite segment where we get to talk trash on the drivers. Maybe we don't like the drivers. Maybe we don't like how they perform at this track. Maybe it's we don't like their pricing on DraftKings, or maybe it's just that they're a terrible fantasy play this week. Adrian, who do you have for us to go to the garage, buddy?
Well, I don't like to hold grudges, guys, but this guy did almost wreck Trevor Bayne last night in the in the Can-Am duels. I'm going to take Jamie McMurray as my going to the garage pick at 8,000. He starts third, and just like I said with my Eric Jones argument, are you going to take Jamie McMurray at 8K or pay $300 more and have 31 more potential place differential opportunities? I just don't. I think it's a no-brainer. If you play Jamie McMurray, you're lighting money on fire. He has to lead to make up his salary, and Jamie McMurray's never really been someone to go out there and lead races. Of course, he's the 2010 Daytona 500 winner, but he didn't really lead a lot of laps when he won that race. He is one of the most talented restrictor plate drivers in the series. The only problem that I see with that is what he displayed last night in the dual race. He is the most aggressive driver in the series as far as changing lanes and trying to find runs to get to the front. He does not fear where he puts his car. It makes it extremely fun to watch. Makes it extremely stressful to roster, especially when he's making these moves in front of all your picks. Even if you don't roster Jamie McMurray, the big problem with Jamie McMurray is he can still find a way to take out your drivers. So, this guy is obviously very skilled, but he has a high, success to crash rate. If you look at when he's not winning, he's usually involved in a big wreck. He makes himself very prone to get turned by his competitors when he's diving inside and outside of the lanes and making these crazy moves. And a lot of the times, the only way he makes these moves pay off is because the driver gives him some leniency. And as you get down to the end of the race, and this being the biggest race of the season, there's not going to be anyone that's going to let you in a hole with 15, 20 to go. So that's what makes me fear playing Jamie McMurray starting up at the front. Even if he is in the lead and he is paying off his salary, I think that he's going to get dumped pretty quickly at the end because, I don't think Kyle Larson is quite the capable plate racer to be able to come up there to the front with McMurray and, protect him from those Gibbs guys and those Penske guys and those Hendrick guys. If you're going to play a guy at this salary, you got to look down and play guys like Blaney and Jones and Casey Kane, Chris Buescher, AJ Allmendinger, guys that we've, been mentioning this whole time. You just don't play a guy like Jamie McMurray. And if you can adapt this strategy most weeks and be able to point out and look at the starting lineup and see that these opportunities are there and, see the clear fades like Jamie McMurray, that's when you really start becoming a successful fantasy player. So if you want to start that road to becoming a successful fantasy player, don't pick Jamie McMurray in the Daytona 500.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, AW. The Big Mac is going to go to the big back of the race because there's just no way that McMurray's going to hang up there in the top 5 and be able to pay off for this duration of the 200 laps and through the segments. And I don't have the confidence in that Chip Ganassi team for them to be smooth and no issues with everything on pit road. But also too, like you said, with his aggressiveness, all that does is irritate all the other drivers when, at the beginning of the race. I guarantee you, if he could have the chance to go up to the front, obviously he's going to go up to the front at no matter what cost, even if there's 180 laps left in this race, and all the other drivers are just kind of staying back and kind of seeing what happens. But McMurray's always been that type of driver, especially at these restrictor plates. But that's what made him entice him last night at the duels was because he was starting so far back. But with him starting in the third position. And at that salary of 8,000, like you said, there's just better options out there. So I just have to avoid the Big Mac this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this short and simple. Not even on my radar starting third. Don't even – I will have him on 0 lineups. It's that simple.
Same.
All right, Liehr, who do you got going to the garage, buddy?
My going to the garage is our favorite girl on the circuit. Going
the
with
only girl
10.
on the circuit.
I thought you were just going to say Ricky Stenhouse.
Well, you didn't let me finish yet. But, Danica.
Close.
And the rest, Danica and the rest of her Stewart-Haas racing team is going to be making a ton of adjustments for the first handful of races this year due to them switching manufacturers from Chevy over to Ford. And obviously the learning curves and the differences from the Chevys over to the Fords. But over the years, she has gotten better and better as she spends more time in these NASCAR Top Series cars. But Daytona, although, is not one of those types of tracks that's been basically very kind to her. Specifically, over the last 4 races, she started 20th, 27th, 16th, and 22nd, with finishes of 21st, 35th, 35th, 27th. This week is no obsession, boys. As she starts 12th, which is way, way, way too high for Miss Danica Patrick in the number 10. But she's paid off for those that played her this week in the clash and the duel last night. But Sunday is a completely different ball game. So her cost this week is $6,500, which is, for Danica is not bad. She will have to have at least a top 15 finish to pay off her lower tiered salary. Although, we're going to be able to, predict wrecks here. But she's wrecked 2 out of the last 4 races. So my advice to everybody out there, avoid her like the plague this weekend because there's just a great percentage that she's not going to pay off her salary this weekend. But for the contrarian people out there, you may want to stick her in maybe one lineup just for that, just in case.
I mean, I'm going to even disagree with that, Liehr. I think she's going to be over-owned. No, I think I get what you're saying, but I think she's going to be over-owned because people are going to point chase, and they're going to see on DraftKings that it showed that she scored good points for both the clash and the duel, and they're going to just chase those points, not understanding how she got those points by literally doing things that she has never done in a NASCAR before. That was literally her best finish on a race. I just easy fade. The Danica rule from last year for all of those that you watched, unless she starts further back than 24th, don't even think about it, and it will save you lots of money. This is one of those instances. Just employ the Danica rule. Adrian?
Poppa's paradigm.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, with her running that Aspen Dental car, if you play Danica Patrick on your lineup, your teeth are gonna be sent down your throat because there's no way this girl's paying off. Just don't play Danica Patrick.
Might as well schedule a teeth cleaning.
Exactly.
Right.
At your local Aspen Dental office.
A root canal would be preferable, after what she's going to do to your lineups. All right, guys, I'm going to be bold, and we saved the boldest for the last. I'm sending Chase to the garage. Last year, Adrian sent Chase to the garage, sitting on the pole in this race for basically the same set of reasons. He just had also the fact that he was a rookie. I'm sending Chase to the garage once again because of a few reasons. First, I think he's going to be massively overowned. People are going to see that he dominated qualifying and that he was running up front, and so was Earnhardt in the duels. I think people are going to be all over these plays, and they aren't going to understand that the math just doesn't support the play. The same argument I made against Junior is even going to be more fleshed out here. In the last few races, the highest finish for someone on the pole at the 500 in the last 5, is 8th. If we assume that Chase will do what every other driver here has done and fall back to at least 8th spot or worse, that is 68 laps he has to lead for you to not lose a point from the 46 points that he starts with. And I'm sorry, 46 points is not going to get it done this week, especially with all those place differential guys. The math shows that what you're going to need is between high 60s and above, right? My sweet spot number was in the mid 70s, right? And I just don't see any way in which Chase Elliott gets to 70 points without completely dominating the race, especially when you have the fact that if Liehr's scenario that he talked about earlier, where he and Earnhardt are teamed up together in the front, are working, I'm guessing they're going to switch off back and forth and split the difference between the two of them. That just spells disaster for both of those cars from a fantasy perspective, and that's why I don't want to be on them. The math just doesn't support it. I love Chase. I love Junior, but I can't make those plays this week. And if I'm not going to make the plays for the elite guys, I'm sure not going to make them for the McMurrays of the world or the Kurt Bushes of the world. Adrian?
I will have zero exposure to Chase Elliott, and we all suggest that you probably do the same. It's great for Chase Elliott, especially I'm from Georgia and Chase Elliott's from Georgia. It's great to see that he's gotten the pole for the Daytona 500. It's great to see that he's doing the 24 car proud, with Jeff Gordon stepping away. And it's also even cooler that Jeff Gordon's going to be driving the pace car that leads the 24 to the green flag from the pole position for the Daytona 500. But I just don't think that Chase Elliott can keep the 24 car up in the front of the field for the amount of time that he will need to pay off his salary. Sure, Chase has a fast car. Sure, Chase might run top 5, top 10 all day, and he might even factor in for the win. But at his price, and with all those guys back in the back of the pack that have the place differential opportunity, you just cannot play Chase Elliott when you have a guy like Kyle Busch who is getting +1 for every spot he moves up. And Chase just has to – it's a big battle to be able to be at the front and to be able to actually lead laps. If you're only getting a quarter of a point for every lap you lead, and it's such a struggle to lead every single lap,
right,
way that you can bank on that when you have guys who have guaranteed 1 point per position, and some of the guys that are in front of them are in far less superior equipment. It's just not a play you're going to make this year. Sure, Chase Elliott might have a great day, but he's not going to win the race. He's not going to lead a lot of laps, and he's going to get probably teamed up on. Like you guys said, I just don't see any way that Chase Elliott's going to pay off his salary.
Yeah, I would love to say the same thing. And I would love to say, yes, I would play Chase Elliott. But I know that you guys will probably give me a hard time because you're going to say, well, what's the difference then, Liehr, between Dale Earnhardt and Chase Elliott, because they're both in the front and, blah, blah, blah. Well, the reason for Chase Elliott is because he doesn't have the experience that Dale Earnhardt has here, the domination that he has. But obviously the price difference is huge. But I would much rather, at $9,200, I would much rather, like you guys said, play Martin Truex, who's $200 cheaper, and starting, 35 or 34 places lower for the place differential. There's just more opportunity there, even though Martin Truex, my boy, love you, buddy. But Martin Truex just is not a strong plate racer. But I would much rather play Truex in this situation than Chase Elliott, just based off of those things as far as the statistics with him being up front. And I think that Hamlin's going to be up there as well, just to take it over from him. And I think it's going to be more of probably an Earnhardt, Hamlin type of situation, specifically too with, Keselowski in 7th, who's going to get right up there as well.
That wraps up the Going to the Garage segment. As you can see, those are the guys and gals that we think you should fade this week. Now, guys, is the segment of our show where we put together an actual lineup that will be in the $5 lug nut that you can compete against. Remember, we encourage you to not copy this lineup exactly. The purpose of this is just to show you the right thought process and how we go about constructing rosters. So let's kick it off with, since he did such an awesome job with the burning rubber baby, Liehr, who do you want to start this lineup off with?
Let me think.
Oh my God, you're really going to want to do an Earnhardt lineup? All right.
Yes!
So here's the deal. We were a little hard on him. Let's go ahead and do the Earnhardt lineup because I think a lot of people out there are going to want to do an Earnhardt lineup.
Exactly. What we talked about, from the view of the masses for what's going to happen, his ownership is going to be huge. But I think that's the way we should definitely go because it's going to be one of those things that, in my personal opinion, I think it's going to pay off.
Well, Adrian, give us the second guy we want on this lineup.
Oh, boy, I've been waiting for this opportunity. Give me Ryan Blaney in the number 21 car.
All right, we're going all the way down to Blaney at 7,300.
Guy's going to be fast.
Yeah.
Also, I want to add to the Ryan Blaney play. We talked about how he didn't have teammates. He's got Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski who love working with him and really like drafting with him. So I'm not worried about him not having teammates because I really think those guys are going to help him, and they both have really fast cars.
Yeah.
And they're gonna help share notes to try to get this team's backup car just like their 500 car was. I'm sure that Wood Brothers is already talking to their partners at Penske to get this 21 car buttoned up just like the 500 car was. So I'm not worried about it.
Right on. Well, guys, I'm a man of my word, and I told you guys I'm majority playing Truex or Kyle Busch. So pick one of the two. We going with Truex? Well, I mean, Liehr's starting this lineup. It's Liehr's favorite driver. Let's throw Truex on there. Why not?
Yeah.
All right, Liehr, your turn, buddy. We have 7,700 left per driver.
Basically, from here, it just really depends on what you really think is going to happen. And because we'll always have to try to play out the scenario or situation in your mind. I think in order for us to save a little bit of salary, get somebody that, a little bit of praise up there, even though I said I'm not going to play in a ton of them, I think you put the dinger in there.
Yeah, smart move.
All right, we'll roll down here and put in Allmendinger at 6,700. That leaves us $8,200 per driver remaining. Adrian, are you going to do it to me? I think you're going to do it to me.
Wow. See, I was.
Go ahead. I'll reach down.
Yeah. We gotta have Eric Jones.
All right. Oh, that gave Liehr that made Liehr. He liked this lineup.
Liehr, remember that guy that used to be your favorite driver?
Yeah.
He could fit pretty well on this team. Casey Kane, he's starting outside the top 25.
Guys, honestly, at this point, since I had the last pick, I would honestly choose between Menard, Buescher, Castle, Menard, Buescher, Castle. Yeah.
Dude, what about Kane? What about Raising Kane?
Yeah, Raising Kane, man.
Kane works too. Well,
look, this is another way
the problem is, man, is you guys this lineup has two of those Chevys that like to turn out in turn 4, but we don't have the third one, and that's what I don't get in this lineup. If we're gonna commit to this,
you're playing Casey Kane though for a place differential. You're playing Junior because he's going to be a dominator. But I was just messing around with it. You could actually, instead of playing Eric Jones and Casey Kane, you could fit Chris Buescher and Jimmy Johnson.
I mean, I think that lineup makes more sense. I think if you're going with the Eric Jones lineup though, and here's something that I forgot to mention when we were talking about Eric Jones, I kind of think you have to pair him with Truex.
I agree.
You're going to team. They're going to team up together. They have to run together. In order for Eric Jones in the race vision to pay off the way you were talking about him.
Yeah, I have much more trust in the Furniture Row guys than I do in the JTG racing team.
Right.
For obvious reasons.
I think the play is this is where you would kick off a Blaney. Can we even do that? Force in Jimmy. And super punt, and just bank on one of the guys at the back of the field. Being a lap down, it doesn't matter because people are going to be wrecked out.
It just shows that you have to sacrifice someone.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't have everybody.
So where do we want to go? We can go with Casey Kane and lock it in, or we can do my little swerve, kick Blaney and spend. I don't know that we can spend up that.
I think that I'm going to be in a lot of trouble with the misses if we kick Blaney off this team.
Well, I'm not.
And you're going to be in trouble with me.
She's not.
And with Jamie.
She's not
Jamie was the misses.
She's not my girlfriend, and it's my money on the line for this lineup, kids. So, guess what? I believe you done got overridden. I'm taking out Blaney and putting in Jimmy Johnson on this lineup, and then I will give you guys your pick of 5,400 down.
Are you 5,400 down?
Yep.
Oh, that's really nice of you, Poppa. I really don't know why you would bestow that honor on me. I'm not picking any of these guys on any lineup that I make. But give me Corey LaJoie just because I believe in that team more than Colwood's team.
Yeah, that's probably right. I don't know. The question is if we had the field wreck up, is the Corey LaJoie play with Jimmy, does that total more points than the other route?
You could. That's why we make multiple lineups, right?
All right. Well, I will go ahead and lock in this one as the $5 lineup.
Even though I'm going to go ahead and say it, I think originally if you would make your money back if you put Kane in there. But that's just my 2 cents.
Don't worry, Jenny. I'm going to enter that lineup.
Well, guys, as you can see, we've got some interesting lineup theories, and we're battling back and forth as to which way you want to go about it. Man, dude, I'm sorry. When I had to put Junior on the lineup, I was going to take a little bit of leeway with it there, Liehr. But, guys, it has been our pleasure having you join us again for the 2017 kickoff Daytona 500 Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. Thanks again for spending your time with us. Let's take down those GPPs. Let's win some money. And remember, as always, feel free to ask us questions on the YouTube page, on the Facebook fan page, or on Twitter. We're responsive. Adrian, say your goodbyes, bud.
Really appreciate everyone watching again this season. The Daytona 500 is going to be so exciting. I really hope that everyone's going to get together with your friends and family and really enjoy this race and really appreciate that is the spectacle that is the Daytona 500. There's a lot that goes into these races. There's a lot of people who don't see their families for weeks and months at a time to prepare these cars to put on this show. So Sunday should be really, really fun to watch. So good luck to everyone out there. Hopefully Trevor Bayne can bring the job done for Roush Fenway and get that 6 car back in victory lane. But thanks again for watching, and enjoy the race, everybody.
It's great to have all you guys back again for the 3rd season of the Rubbin' is Racing Fantasy NASCAR Show. We really look forward to bringing you guys content every single week. Feel free to interact with us every single week as well. But make sure you tell your friends and family about the show. But also check out the like Poppa said, the YouTube page, the fan page on Facebook. But we are going to have some interesting things this year. We're also going to give away some more diecasts, and looking forward to it, guys. I am just pumped. I'm ready for this race to happen. I wish it was happening tonight, but I just can't wait to see what's going to transpire, especially too with this inaugural with a new main sponsor. But by the way, thank you, Monster Energy, for the Monster Energy girls and the outfits. They're a lot better than the Sprint Cup girls. But also looking forward to the segments and how that's going to come play a factor into what each race is going to play out to be, because it's definitely going to play out in the strategies for each team. It's going to make it a lot more exciting and a lot more competitive racing. So looking forward to that.
All right, kids. Everybody have a good one. Thanks for watching again.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, guys.